Hi, Stephen Borgovini.
Hello.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with me
You're
today.
welcome, dear.
To begin, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about myself. Um, well, I'm come from America, and I am a musician and a music teacher. Um, how far do you want me to go in depth? How deep do you want me to go with this question? It's very broad.
A little bit.
A little bit more?
Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up in America in a state called New York, and I started playing music at a very young age. I actually, my mother just sent me a couple pictures when I was probably 2 or 3, and one is of me with a toy drum, playing a toy drum, and another one is of me holding like a toy guitar.
Oh.
So I knew from a very young age, I was interested in music from a very young age, and I always knew that I was going to do music. I always played music, and I always knew I wanted music to be my life. So there was no questions there growing up.
What inspired you to start playing or making music?
I guess back in the early days, there was, okay, so 2 things. Early days, there was this TV show called The Partridge Family. Have you ever heard of The Partridge Family? Okay.
No.
I figured you wouldn't. Basically, it was a TV show about a family, and the whole family played instruments. So they had a family band,
Ah.
and the lead singer he was the son of the mother in the family, and he was the oldest child, and his name was Keith, and he would play guitar and sing, and the band would be playing with him, and I was like, I want to be that guy.
Oh.
And then
TV
later,
show.
yeah, TV show, and then later on,
When you were 2 years old, you saw that?
no, well, how old was I? I was probably maybe 6 or 7.
Oh.
Yeah. So I guess me being attracted to these instruments already, and then seeing that on TV, I kind of put everything together and was like, oh, that's it right there. And then later on, a few, not many years later, but a few years later, there was this band called Kiss. You ever hear of Kiss? Yeah, so they were a rock band, and they would wear makeup, and I loved their music, and the drum, when I heard the drums, because back then there was no videos, so you would just buy the albums, yeah, and all you had was the music, and then the pictures on the album, and back then that was enough. Yeah, that's Peter Criss is from Kiss. He's the one that made me want to get serious with the drums.
Who are your biggest musical influences and why?
Biggest musical influences.
Or influence?
That's a tough one because I have so many. Let's talk about for drums, yeah.
Because you play drums.
I guess one of my biggest influences would be a drummer called Bernard Purdy. So when I was growing up, I'm playing drums, and I'm listening to all sorts of music. And then I found this band called Steely Dan, and I loved their music, and I would play along to their records all the time. And what I found out was Steely Dan didn't have just one drummer. they would hire different drummers for different songs. And the drummers that they were hired were like the best drummers of that time.
Oh.
So drummers like Steve Gadd
Oh.
and Jeff Porcaro and Bernard Purdy, like all those guys are really my biggest influences because of Steely Dan. And Steely Dan is maybe the only band that through my life I've always enjoyed their music, you know, because and you might find this as you grow and get older. There's times where you like a certain band, but then as you get older, maybe you don't like them so much anymore. You know, you might have felt that already, right? So Steely Dan is one of those bands where that never happened to me. And Bernard Purdy, he was a groove drummer, so he was all about playing drums in a way that would make people dance, more than like showing off a lot of like fast things, you know. And I always thought that it was really special if you could move somebody with the playing of your instrument.
What was the most challenging song or rhythm you've had to play, and how did you tackle it?
I think probably the whole genre of jazz. You know, I guess that's more than just a rhythm, but that was my most recent challenge. So I've always wanted to play jazz, but I never did. Because I was so intimidated by it. I would go see a jazz band and I would watch the drummer and I'd be like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. So I kind of shied away from it, you know. And then this happened around the time of the MCO, right before our lockdown here. I was skateboarding and I injured myself and I injured my shoulder, right? And so typically I play like this, right? Match grip.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really move my shoulder. So when I was very young, I studied traditional grip where you hold the stick differently in your left hand. So what I did was...
Can you like show the...
Yeah, sure. So here's match grip, right? And this is how most rock drummers play, you know? Traditional is like this, and this comes from marching band music, right? So when I first started taking drum lessons a long time ago, this is what they taught. So I had learned this originally. And jazz drummers, typically they play like this, right? So I sat down on my drums, I've got my arm in a sling, and I put a drumstick in my hand, and I realized I can still play traditional because that's just the movement of the wrist, right? I'm not moving my arm at all. So I thought, okay, yeah, so now I'm playing like this, and I was like, okay, so I'm already kind of 1 foot in this jazz door already. So I thought, okay, now's the time to start really studying this. And then the lockdown happened, and I had a lot of time to practice, and I practiced a lot. I practiced every day for many hours for probably close to 2 years, and now I can almost play it.
Almost. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice.
For music.
Yeah, for music. I don't know. That's a good one. I mean, I haven't had like mentors or anything. And the one mentor that I did kind of have, when I asked him for advice on having a career in music, now this was like in the mid to late 80s, he said, forget about music, get into computers. So
yeah, everything now is about computers.
yeah, and imagine if I had taken advice and gotten into computers in the mid 80s. I'd probably be a billionaire now, you know?
True.
So that maybe wasn't, that was some advice, maybe not the best advice. Yeah. I don't know. Let's come back to that one. Let me think about that one.
Okay. What is your favorite genre of music and why? Yes, a lot.
Yeah. You know, especially nowadays, being a musician really means, especially if you're a teacher, right? Or a session player, meaning you're called upon to play different styles and maybe called upon to go into the recording studio and plan maybe just one song, you know? You have to know many different styles, you know? So that's tough because I love so many different styles. But I think really where my heart is and what I know the most about is rock, because I've been playing that for so long. But the type of rock music that I like to play is rock music that has a groove to it. Okay?
So it's not like the booming loud rock.
Yeah, not so much. And a lot of this music either happened in the 1970s or even the music today, the rock music that I listen to today is heavily inspired by that decade of music. And I think the reason why I'm so attracted to that decade is because the drummers of that time, they were all inspired by jazz drummers, right? So jazz is all about the swing, right? All about the groove. So these early rock drummers, when they started to play louder, you know, they took that groove with them. So then they were playing this louder, more maybe not more intense, but intense music with a groove still. Yeah.
So rock.
Yeah. Funky rock.
If you could collaborate with any musician, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I'd say Miles Davis, but that would probably be very scary. There's actually this musician, his name is Brant Bjork, and he and I have a lot of things in common. He was originally a drummer, and then and then he started playing guitar, and now he has his own band where he plays guitar and he sings, which is kind of the same thing that I'm doing. So I can relate to this artist a lot, and I really like how he writes and the way his groove is in his songs, and even his lyrics are really good. So it'd be a lot of fun to team up with him and see what we would produce working together.
What advice would you give to aspiring drummers trying to make it in the music industry?
I guess the first thing that I would ask them is what is their goal? What is their aspirations? Where do they see themselves once they're successful in the music world? You know, and that could be a lot of different answers there. I know for me, my goal was I wanted to be in a signed band. I wanted to be in a band that was signed to a label, right? So when I was younger, for years, that's all I thought about. And every move that I made was hoping to get there. And that's how I kind of directed my life, you know. If there was two opportunities and one was I felt was getting closer to that and the other one wasn't, I would take that one every time. So I was really focused on that. So I guess that would be something that I would tell them. They have to be completely focused, 100%. And what I see nowadays is there's a lot of my students, they play multiple instruments, right? And that's great because so do I. But I think at an early age, it's good to put a focus on one instrument and make and try to perfect that, right? And how I would choose that instrument is I would ask myself, what am I the best at? What comes the easiest to me? What do my friends say I sound the best at, you know? And then I would focus on that one and try to master that instrument. And in my opinion, that's not only in music, that's for any young person. Find the thing that you're really good at and then try to master it. I think it's a good formula for success.
Yeah, for everyone who's
Yeah.
getting like a job or something.
Yeah, exactly. Any career, you know. Yeah.
Have you ever been in a band?
Have I ever been banned?
No.
Not yet.
Have you ever been in a band?
Yeah, I've been in many bands. Many bands. I started playing in bands when my first band, I was probably 12 or 13.
What's your like your most famous band?
The most famous band that I was in was Fun Lovin' Criminals, FLC. And we were signed to a major label. We were signed actually a few major labels. And that was the end goal to all my focus. So I achieved that. I was lucky enough to achieve that.
So that made you famous?
That made me,
Well, yeah,
maybe. I don't know if I was famous, but
you're all over on Google.
yeah, we made albums and we made videos and we toured and we had a lot of fans and yeah, I guess that's what I'm most known for as a person. That time in that band.
When was it?
That was in the mid to late 90s.
What does music mean to you?
Music is life. Music is like oxygen to me.
Whoa.
Music, I'm constantly thinking about music all the time, and I'm usually working in that field somehow. Either I'm practicing or writing or teaching or thinking about those things. So it's really everything, and it's allowed me to see a lot of the world and travel. I've made so many friends through music. Yeah, it's been the most important thing in my life, for sure, no doubt.
When did you start teaching and why did you want to do?
I started teaching when I was in New York City, but it wasn't like my full-time job. I started teaching friends, and I really enjoyed that. When I was younger, growing up, like I said, I wanted to be like a performer, and my father. And when I went to school for that, my father, he would always say, always have something to fall back on. And he would say, you know, like being a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought that was an excuse. I thought that if I had something to fall back on, then I wouldn't be desperate enough to go for what I wanted 100%. But in the end, he was right, because I came to a realization where I figured out that my happiness comes from giving instead of receiving. So I was like, oh, okay, I see that. So then when I moved to Malaysia, I started looking for schools to teach music in.
Wait, why did you move to Malaysia?
I moved to Malaysia because my girlfriend in New York was Malaysian. She was born in Ipoh. And we were together for a few years, and then she decided that she wanted to come back home. And I had been in New York for a long time, in the city, and I was ready.
Since you were born, right?
Well, no, originally I wasn't born in New York City, I was born in New York State. And the place where I was born is about 5 hours drive from, so I was born in a town called Rome, New York. And then I moved to New York City when I was in my 20s. And I was in New York City for about 20 years. So what's 5 hours from here? Penang? Is Penang 5 hours?
Just 7 hours.
Okay, so yeah, so New York City was closer than Penang to KL.
It's like Johor or something. It's around.
Okay, yeah. I forgot what I was gonna say. What was that talking about? What was the question again?
Why did you move to Malaysia?
Oh yeah. Okay. So then I decided I'm ready for a change. You know, I like to experience different things, and I think in experiencing different things, you grow as a person. You know.
Yeah.
It's like.
That's after you reach like your goal, you said.
Yeah, this is after all that. So I reached that goal, you know, and then after that I was like, okay, I'm open. What's next? And what I realized was, for me to grow, I know that I have to put myself into a situation where I'm uncomfortable, but then somehow figure it out to where I become comfortable, right? And I thought, well, let me move to Malaysia, because that's going to be completely different than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stay with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and so yeah, that's why I came here, and I love it here.
How long?
I think it's been pretty close to 10 years, maybe 9 or 10 years, something like that. When you get older, time, yeah, and it doesn't matter as much, I guess. I think when you're younger, you always,
When is this?
you want to be older, right? Like when you're 7, you want to be 8, and when you're 9, you want to be 11, then you want to be a teenager. But as you get older, time, it doesn't matter in that way as much. So I haven't really kept track of how many years I've been here, but I think it's probably. I keep track. I'll go into my photos on my phone and look at the dates, and I'll be like, oh, okay.
The first Malaysia.
Yeah, the first picture I took in Malaysia. What year was that? Yeah.
So you said about that goal, right? You finish the goal. What did you do after that? I mean, did you set another goal for yourself? Did you just like I'm
Yeah, that's a good question. Not really. You know, I guess I was really open then for the next thing, you know? And when I was in high school, my last year of high school, so I was 17 or 18, I fell in love with photography. Yeah. And
Yes.
yes, and I loved, and so back then it was all like in the dark room with the chemicals, and you shoot pictures on film, and then you take the film and you process the film with chemicals, shake it in this. It was a whole different thing.
But there's no like mobile phone.
Yeah, no, this is before that. This was in 1985.
You had like a camera.
Yeah.
The
The big one. Yeah. Shoot.
Did it like turn up for you or did it?
No. So it exposed the image onto this film that was inside the camera. Kind of like you know how we have the digital recording, but back in the day we had tape, right? You would record on tape. Yeah, the same idea, but just for visual, not audio.
Oh, so you don't record onto something, so.
You record onto like a physical thing.
Oh.
Yeah. And film, so, and it was called film. You've heard of film? Yeah. And film is a lot like tape.
So back then it was not called photography, it's called film.
No, it was called photography.
No,
what captured the image was called film, yes. Yes, sir. So, and I got really into that. And so after, you know, high school, you typically go to university, right? So, you know how I said I was always music. It was all I ever knew. But then when I found photography, I was like, oh, I really like this.
Yeah.
So
did you change?
well, I was about to. My parents were like, so, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to school for music or for photography or what? And I really didn't know.
Well, back then it was like, this school is specifically for that.
Yeah.
Like this school is specifically.
Well, you could major in that, right? But my high school, they approached me and they said, if you go to school for music, we're going to give you money, a scholarship to put it towards your education. So I went for music. Done, easy. After I reached that goal in music, then I think I was open, but I think I was kind of like, oh, photography, remember, I like that, you know? And I sent an email out to all my friends, and I said, hey, does anybody know of any jobs in photography? And a friend got back to me and said, yeah, there's a studio that they take interns.
Yeah. It was back then.
It was back then, yeah. And so I went, and I got the job, and I was an assistant photographer, so I would help like the photographer set things up, and then in about a year and a half, they promoted me to photographer, and I had my own studio. Yeah, and I did that for 10 years in Brooklyn.
Oh.
And that's where I met. That's where I met my my now wife.
Oh.
The Igbo lady. Yeah. Yeah.
So you took pictures of her?
Yeah, I've taken lots of pictures of her, but my job, what I was doing was
It's like portrait.
I was what they call a still life photographer. So I was working for a department store.
So you put like an apple near the window.
Yeah, but it wasn't apples though. It was like stuff in a department store that you would buy, you know. And yeah, so like anything, clothes, shoes, lots of clothes, purses.
Oh.
They call it soft goods. So anything that you would buy in a department store that was soft, pillows.
Oh.
Yeah.
shoes are not soft.
Yeah, but
Or
I
some
shot a
of them
lot
are.
of shoes. A lot of sneakers. And so I had my studio, I had 3 different sets and 3 different cameras.
Was
I-
there like, sorry, was there like lighting?
Yeah,
or-
there was all sorts of lights. And
like a-
and before I got the job as the intern, as the assistant, I didn't know any of that.
So just took pictures because you liked it.
Yeah. And well, I watched the photographer that I was working for, and then every night I would stay late. I would stay like maybe two hours usually, and I would just kind of do my own. They called it test.
That's
I would test, and so I would take, we call it merch, or let's say shoes, right? I would take merch that was lying around, whatever, and I'd put it up on the set, and I'd try to light it and see if I could make it look good.
Or is it like on like a podium?
Yeah, it'd be on a set. Yeah,
Or like a thing and then you like zoom in.
exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
well, that was back then. They didn't have like the big lenses. You can like zoom in and stuff.
Yeah, we had all that.
Already?
We had all that, yeah, and we had, and it was digital too. It wasn't film anymore, because this was, when was this? This had to be,
2000.
yeah, we were in the 2000s for sure. Maybe 2010, something like that, somewhere around there.
Whoa. So
Yes, or maybe even earlier than that, early 2000s for sure.
uh,
But yeah, we had it was digital,
mhm.
and you'd shoot the picture just like now, and it'd go into the computer, and then once it's in the computer, we do Photoshop and make everything look good. And what I realized was photography again and music are so closely related when it comes to the editing and the manipulation that you can do once it's in the computer. It's really the same thing. If you take, let's say, a vocal, right? Somebody sings into the microphone, it goes into the computer. It's just like a camera taking a picture going into the computer. And then once it's in the computer, then you can edit it and manipulate it any way you want, make it sound different. Same thing with photography. So really, when I got into photography, that was one of the things that helped me excel in it, because I had done so much work in the music field doing that I just related all this visual stuff to all the audio stuff that I already knew.
So you're like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, it really wasn't that hard. No.
Do you write music?
I do. I write. I've written 3 albums
Whoa.
where I've recorded all the instruments myself, mixed everything, even came up with the artwork for the albums, everything.
Whoa.
Yeah. And now I have a band.
It's on Spotify.
Yeah, it's on Spotify. CC Jones. Now I have a band here, and we're playing that music. Plus now I'm writing for a new album with them, and that's actually what I'm doing right now. Besides right
Right now.
I'm all the music is written, and
On paper.
it's well, no, not paper. What I do is
Or like.
I'll write and I record, so I send them demo tapes or demo recordings.
Oh, like your idea and you just send them. And
Yeah.
then they're like, okay, how do you put this
Yeah,
together?
that's right.
Uh-huh.
And so now what we're doing is we're recording those songs so they sound really good.
But so-
Because the demo recordings,
Yeah.
it's like I like to stay in the moment and follow that creative process when it hits me. So everything isn't perfect. Everything doesn't sound great because I don't take a lot of time to get the sound heard. I just want to get the idea down, you know.
So what's the process of writing? So you,
So for me, it comes different ways. Sometimes I'll hear something in my head, or sometimes I'll just be sitting down playing the guitar, and I'll play something that I like, right? And then I'll see what I can do with that. Because I like to create at least 3 or 4 different parts for one song, right? So we talk about like the verse, the chorus, maybe the pre-chorus and a bridge, right? Maybe those are the 4. And if I can get 3 of those, then I figure I probably got something, you know? So then what I'll do is I'll go into my studio and I'll start recording the guitar for that. And then
so get the chords.
yeah, I usually get the chords down, and the rhythm will come with how I'm playing the chords. And then in the back of my mind, the drums are like a given. Like I don't have to think about that. While I'm playing in my head, I can hear the drums while I'm playing the guitar. But typically that's what I'll do next. After I have the guitar written, then I'll sit down at my drums and I'll play the drums to it. And then I'll probably put the bass if I'm gonna play bass, or sometimes, like now I'm letting the bass player in the band write his own parts. So I won't put the bass down, I'll send him that.
So you're the boss?
Well, I don't know, I guess. I guess I'm the director of the band, let's say that. And then I'll start thinking of lyrics, and I like to write stories, you know.
Do you write like poems? Do they like, when you write lyrics, do they have to rhyme, or do you just like write it and then see what you can come up with?
That's a good question. Typically I like to rhyme, only because it helps me with the flow of the lyric when I sing it. If, you know, like some poems rhyme, some poems don't, right? The poems that rhyme, they have this kind of flow to them that I think works nice musically.
Yeah, when you like read it out, it's like.
Yeah, you can. It almost feels more musical when there's rhyming, you know. Exactly. Yeah. And so since I'm a drummer, I feel like when I write, a lot of stuff is based on rhythm, you know. So when I'm coming up with a lyric idea, I'm also thinking about the rhythm of how I'm going to sing it, and that often will dictate the words or what order I put the words in. But like I said, I like to write stories. And for the C.C. Jones music, what I did was I created this character called C.C. Jones.
Oh.
And I made a whole story about his life.
Wait, C.C. Jones is a band, or is it
C.C. Jones is a person. But he's not me.
Oh.
But what I found was, if I create a character, then I can create story. It's fiction, right? If you only write nonfiction, right? Let's say you write nonfiction about yourself,
Yeah.
then you have to stick to those things,
Yourself.
right? More or less, right?
Yeah.
But if you're writing fiction, then
You can go like
yeah, anywhere. Yeah. So I created this fictional character, and so the lyrics are often it's often a combination of what's happening in my life, because myself is gonna be put into that character.
Because
for
you know
sure.
yourself the
Yeah.
best. You don't know other people.
Yeah, but you know, if something happens to me and I think it's a good idea for a song, but it doesn't happen in a very interesting way, I can just make that thing happen to this guy and make it in an interesting way, you know? Because I'm writing this fictional story.
Wait, so did you write the song about breaking shoulders?
No, not yet. That's a good idea though.
Yeah, because you said everything up. So
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So coming back to the question, where's the question? Wait, what was the question?
Oh, the one I
You
said,
yeah.
I don't It was early on, maybe 3 or 4.
Was it if you could collaborate with any musician?
No.
No. Well, what was the favorite track that you said about? What's the best piece of advice
That could have been it.
you've ever received? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I had this teacher in university, and he was the percussion teacher, but he also taught music history,
Whoa.
which ended up being my favorite class because he was such a good teacher.
Music history.
Yeah.
That's a subject. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to take it.
Yeah. He was really good at teaching it, and
Was it like the whole world, or was it like the main, like classical music? Or is it
that was everything.
world music?
It was mostly classical. It was pretty focused on classical
Oh.
through the different periods of classical music. Yeah.
That stuff.
Yeah. And I came to him with this bizarre question because when you find a teacher that you think knows all the answers, then if you have a question, you're
just gonna.
So I had a question about creativity, and
Do you remember?
this is kind of a weird question. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I asked him. I said, "What kind of music do you think a person would make if they were locked in a room with a piano from the moment they were born until they were 10 years old,
Whoa.
with just a piano?"
What did he say?
He said, "Don't worry about things like that." He said, "Don't worry about things like that." He goes, "You just be yourself. You make the music that you make." Which is the right answer,
What from 0 to 10 in a room with just a piano? That's it.
Yeah. And I also had I had 2 photography teachers. And the first assignment that we had was we had to take, so on a roll of film, I think there was 36 pictures you could take. You were limited. So our first
Take 36 pictures.
yeah, our first assignment was go out and take pictures of anything,
Oh,
right?
36. Okay.
So I had taken pictures of graffiti that were written on the school wall because I thought it looked cool, right?
You can.
So we brought the film in and the teachers processed the film, right?
Yeah.
So then processing it makes it so you can see what you took pictures of basically.
Oh.
And so the teacher called me in to the room and I was like, uh-oh, what's going on? And he showed me the picture that I took and he said, "Stephen, there's a lot of crap in the world, don't add to it." So I think I took that as pretty good advice.
Wait, what was it?
There's a lot of crap in the world, don't add to it. Yeah, so that obviously stayed with me.
Wait,
I
there's
still
the
remember
picture
that
of the
one.
graffiti thing.
What's that?
There's a picture of the graffiti and then he got mad.
Yeah, he didn't like the graffiti. He didn't like the graffiti. But it also kind of showed me that, people can perceive the same thing very differently, right? And I guess that's what art is, You go to a museum and
Yeah, you see this portrait on the wall, just one dot, and
yeah,
that's art.
yeah, but you'll see people sitting there just staring at it,
Yeah, in
Yeah.
awe or something.
Yeah,
And then you see another one which looks like a human, like a real portrait thing, and then nobody's there.
yeah, and it's interesting how people perceive. People have like you go to a museum and people will have their favorite things. You know what? And that's it's like when you go to a movie on the way out, you say, hey, you know, you talk about the movie, right?
Yeah.
When you go to a museum, it's kind of the same thing. You know, you leave and then you talk to your friend or whoever you went with about, you know, what was your favorite, what do you like, and all that.
Wait, so you go out of the cinema, you talk about it.
Yeah.
My dad talks about how good the popcorn is.
Well, that's important too.
Yeah. And how good he slept. how comfortable the seating thing was.
Yeah. All those things are important for sure.
Wait, coming back to what?
But yeah, that's art, right? People are gonna perceive the same painting. They can see in totally different ways, or
different perspectives.
yeah, or make them feel totally different. Yeah. So you know, when I create music, I try not to worry about how people are going to perceive it, because I realize I have not a lot of control over that.
Yeah.
You know.
They want to do what they want.
Yeah, they're going to take out of it, you know, what they take out of it, how they perceive it. So when I write, as long as I feel like I've expressed myself the way I wanted to, then that's enough. Then put it out to the world and see how they receive it.
What's the most funniest story you have in your music career?
What was the funniest story?
The funniest. They tell them about the sight reading thing.
What's the sight reading thing?
You said you couldn't sing the notes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good one. You remember that? Okay, so in university we had this class called solfeggio.
Yeah.
And solfeggio,
Singing.
yeah. So we were given a book, and in the book, I think there were 4 measure phrases, and the 4 measure phrases we would go down the pages, and every page had I don't know.
Thick book.
Yeah, and everyone had a number, right? So for this class, what you'd have to do, you'd go to class, and the teacher would call your name, and he'd just say a number, and then you'd have to look at it and sing it with vowels. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, right?
Oh. I was like, wow.
But I was terrible at it. I was so bad. Because I was a drummer.
You're not a singer.
Yeah. And
did you find a way to skip that lesson or something?
no, I couldn't skip it. It was required. But I made a friend at university, and she was an amazing musician, and she had perfect pitch, I think you call it.
Perfect. That means you can hear the exact note.
Yeah.
When you play like a
Yeah. And she studied the Suzuki method.
Yeah,
right?
Suzuki people have good ears.
Yeah. And so she told me the story of her first one-on-one lesson at this school, and her teacher said, "Okay, he gave her the music, and he didn't know about the Suzuki thing."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Okay, so we're gonna work on this for the whole term, and then you'll have a final performance, and that'll be your grade."
So she
looked at the music and was like, "I don't know what this is." She goes, "Can you play it for me?" And he played it, and then she said, "Okay, can you play it one more time?" And he was like, "Okay." And he played it again, and then she goes, "It goes like this," and she just played the whole thing. Yeah.
They took one whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So anyhow, so she sat behind me
Uh-huh.
in solfeggio.
Uh-huh.
So the teacher would call my name, Stephen, number 118. And then she would bend, so she would go to her book 118, she would bend over. So she was like right behind me, right? So she would get like right behind me and she starts singing. So loud enough for me to hear, but not loud enough for the teacher to hear. Yeah. And I would just repeat what she sang. And
You can't sing do.
if it wasn't for her, I would have never made it through that class. But like I said, I had to, it was
You should pay her
required.
back.
Yeah, I don't know. Not enough, probably. Not enough. Yeah. Michelle, she was cool.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for sharing your time and insights with me.
You're very welcome. My pleasure, buddy.